Ethereum, Bitcoin. Bitcoin, Ethereum. Which one should we be buying? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Josh and I love to spend my time in front of this camera here talking about money and investing. And it's funny because we don't even have a personal finance education curriculum in our schools whatsoever, and now we're getting to the point where money is almost becoming so complex that we might not be able to even understand it anymore. And I think that's a big part of the discussion for today. Is we're going to be talking a lot about cryptocurrencies. And the reason these are important to talk about is because they have kind of moved out of the fad territory. These things are no longer just like some pump and dump scheme where a lot of people get very excited because it's the beginning of some new trend. This is here to stay. You know, we have companies like Tesla starting to accept Bitcoin, and I think it was one of the major credit card producers essentially decided that they're going to start looking at how they're going to clear transactions in cryptocurrencies and all this sort of stuff. It's really crazy. And for someone who's in the finance industry and someone who helps people deal with money, I need to have my mind and my hands on this problem at all times to kind of understand and make sure I know what I'm talking about when it comes to cryptocurrencies. But that's the unfortunate part, is that there's only so much you can understand about crypto without being a cryptographer, without being someone who has a pretty complex understanding of math. But on a high level today, I want to discuss, what are the main differences between what Bitcoin is and what Ethereum is. These are kind of the two largest cryptocurrencies that every single person is talking about when it comes to crypto. They're the two main ones. And I want to help you understand and decide which of these two might actually be one that fits your thesis better for what you think the future might look like, and which one actually might have more potential based on where you're coming from. So if you guys enjoy, like me, talking about things just like this, make sure to hit that like button below if you want to support the channel, and hit subscribe to get more videos just like this one so we can learn about crypto and learn about all these new developments. But I think in order to understand Ethereum, we need to first understand Bitcoin, because it really evolved out of Bitcoin. That's where Ethereum came from, and we'll get to that in a second. But essentially what Bitcoin is it's a way to transact with one another in a decentralized way. Now, what does that mean? It's like, okay, every time we want to do a financial transaction, whether it's me sending an e-transfer to you or you swiping your credit card at some retailer, that money has to go through some intermediary, right? It has to go through a big bank. It has to go through some financial institution who then clears the transaction. Now, what that means is that we have to all use the same kind of currency. And in a country like the United States or a country like Canada or, most developed westernized countries, we have something called a central bank. And a central bank gets to kind of determine, where should interest rates be? They get to decide how much money is in supply. They get to decide a lot of these things that impact the way that we work and earn and live. If the government decides, like they did in the COVID pandemic, to start just producing massive amounts of fake cash out of thin air and putting it into the economy to solve our problems, to give people money in their checking accounts so they can go buy, that's what the stimulus was, right? What that does, if you think about it, is it kind of deflates the value of that money that we're earning, because you're taking money out of thin air and putting it into the economy when there was no extra value or there was no extra innovation produced. It's just providing what we call liquidity. So we're essentially devaluing that currency that we go into work every single week and work our 40 or 50 hours. We get money out of that, but now it's worth less because governments are deflating it. A lot of people think that it would be much easier if I could just send payments to someone directly that wasn't tied to the US dollar. I'd feel more safe if, in the event that there's a monetary collapse of our country, that I can get out with my cryptocurrency or some other decentralized currency that I can exchange somewhere else. And that is really the precipice of Bitcoin. That's the thesis for this whole thing. That's the dawn of Bitcoin was, okay, what if we are able to create a currency that is not regulated by some central government or by some central bank? And that way, we can have more faith in our earnings power being stored and being able to transact with other people in a way that can't be manipulated or censored or, let's say, spied on if you're up to some dubious things. So now this whole Bitcoin thing is happening, and enter a brilliant guy named Vitalik Buterin. Now, fun fact, I love to name drop, and I'm actually only 1 degree of separation away from Vitalik. He has no idea who I am, but I know someone who actually knows Vitalik, and he is a Russian-Canadian immigrant, and he is one of the most brilliant people I have ever heard speak. He's got lots of content all over the internet, not much that he produced, but stuff that he spoke on, and he actually created Ethereum. I think he created it when he was like in his late teen years, and I imagine at this point he's got to be some degree of billionaire or 100 millionaire because of the amount of Ethereum he owns and what's happened to the price. But anyways, that's all besides the point. Where did Vitalik get this idea from? Well, he essentially thought, okay, Bitcoin is like a decentralized application. It means that there's no central body that's governing it. It's peer-to-peer. It's from person to person. So instead of me saying, hey, I'd like to e-transfer you money, it has to go through a bank. It's, hey, do you want money? And it goes directly to you. Now, that might not have a lot of implications for currency, and that's exactly what Vitalik Buterin said. He said, okay, there are way more far-reaching implications for what this blockchain technology could do than just currency. This could do so many more things. And the way I would help you imagine how much Ethereum can help us do is that Ethereum is not necessarily, in my mind, a coin. It's not necessarily a currency. It's a technology that allows people to build decentralized applications. So you have all these crypto applications. Imagine, for instance, you want to buy a house, okay? Buying a house is a pain. You have to find a buying agent and a selling agent, and there's lawyers involved, and then there's money that sits in escrow with lawyers, and then you have to come to a deal, and then there's all sorts of, there's lending requirements. You have to go get funding from a bank. What if you just said, hey, I want to buy your house? And the person's like, yeah, sure. And you said, okay, it's in the smart contract. If you meet the requirements, we'll do the deal. And then you just all of a sudden do an Ethereum-based home deal where there's now not 16 different intermediaries involved, all kind of taking their transaction costs out of this. That is the brilliance of Ethereum. It's kind of like, very simplified, an app store on the iPhone, but for decentralized applications that allows you to remove middlemen in whatever it might be. Say you want to buy a car. You walk onto a car lot, you're like, I like that car, but boy, do I hate negotiating with salespeople and doing that whole roundabout thing where they try to beat me up and I try to beat them up and we both leave pissed off. Well, I can just walk up to the car and it has a smart contract attached to that physical asset, and if I go in my crypto sphere and transact on that car, I can have that car without a dealership in between. Everything can be done from peer to peer instead of having institutions in between us. Now, one of the last applications for Ethereum that I am thoroughly fascinated by is something called DeFi, and it essentially means decentralized finance. And what that means is me, as a middleman between investors and the stock market, would become completely obliterated, because what that means is we would have smart contracts where instead of needing a stock exchange or a stockbroker or a financial advisor, whatever it might be, you would be able to transact in stocks or transact in investing without needing some intermediary. If Bill over there wants my shares of Apple, we don't have to go through the exchange. I can literally just smart contract him my Apple. That reduces transaction time, it reduces settlement time, it reduces commissions that have to be paid. So in terms of finance, Ethereum is overlapping because Bitcoin is thought of as the cryptocurrency, the blockchain for currency and for money and for finance, but Ethereum also has applications that can be built on it, which allows us to decentralize the world of finance to an even greater degree than you could with Bitcoin. So which of these two should you buy? And I mean, at the end of the day, there is no registration category for an advisor to Bitcoin or Ethereum or any cryptocurrencies, and I certainly shouldn't be recommending you buy either of these things. They're extremely speculative. In my personal opinion, that is non-professional, non-advice giving whatsoever. I think that all of these cryptocurrencies will likely be higher within 10 years, but they're going to experience 50% drops several times before we get there. These are extremely volatile. They're not for the faint of heart. But the way I see Bitcoin is that it's an insurance policy against monetary recklessness from our central banks and our governments. Over the past decade, we've seen that governments like to bail themselves out of their problems by just printing new money, and we're not exactly sure how well that experiment's going to go. And some academics say that it could actually just be fine, but there might not be any ramifications from that, whereas other economists say this is going to create rampant inflation and all the money that we're earning is going to become worthless. So depending on where you stand there, if you're in the money's worthless category, America and North America is on the decline and we're all going to have to flee to a different country, I would say Bitcoin is probably the currency that you want to be in. It's the store of value. It's going to allow you to go somewhere else and transact in a currency that has real faith because it's decentralized. On the other hand, Ethereum is more like the app store for decentralized applications. So if you think, wow, I really hate the fact that the New York Times has certain editors that can place certain stories. I'd rather just have an automated news network that isn't run through censorship or bias. Maybe I could get my information from somewhere that is decentralized. Well, Ethereum could potentially do that. If you want to do a real estate transaction without 16 different intermediaries, an application could be built on Ethereum that would allow you to do that. So the way that I would say it is, if you think that the monetary recklessness is going to create a major issue, Bitcoin is probably your best bet. If you're really bullish on the future of decentralized applications, removing middlemen, and having a culture and an economy that's more peer-to-peer instead of through different institutions, then Ethereum is probably the solid bet. That's the one that makes more sense for that kind of thesis. What we're seeing today is absolutely mind-boggling, and what this could do for the future, it's almost like the Internet 2.0. It's like a new version of the most mind-blowing technology we've ever had. And one of the ways I might explain this is something on Ethereum called decentralized autonomous organizations. And essentially, we're getting to the point where a whole organization or a corporation or a nonprofit or some sort of structure could be completely rid of people and humans and essentially run on a blockchain. So you could have a company that doesn't have people. It essentially just does all of the processes through smart contracts on a blockchain. You don't need people to run a business anymore. These are wild concepts that are like sci-fi ideas of a life where humans don't really have to work and do the things they don't really want to anymore, and they get to spend the time doing all the things they want. Who knows? Maybe the year 2100, that's a reality. But anyways, guys, that's my explanation today on what I think the differences are between Ethereum and Bitcoin, why you might choose one versus the other at a very, very high level. At the end of the day, I don't understand the math. I'm not a cryptographer. I don't really know about the hashing algorithms. I don't understand them that well, but I know enough to understand the thesis behind these investments, and I hope that today you are able to as well. So if you got any value out of this video whatsoever, make sure to hit that like button below, hit subscribe, and turn on post notifications for more videos just like this one every single week. Until next time.